All right, welcome to the Bothell City Council meeting for May 5th, 2020. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide an update of the city's COVID-19 response and address a few items requiring city council action and discussion. So before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our remote meeting format. Due to the governor's extended stay home, stay healthy proclamations under 20-05, the governor's extended Proclamation 20-28 regarding open public meetings, and in consideration for the health and safety of our council members, staff, and public, tonight's meeting is being held remotely. The video of this meeting will be streamed live, as well as recorded and available for later viewing on the city's YouTube channel. Because of the extensions to the governor's stay home, stay healthy proclamations, tonight's visitors' comment portion of the meeting will be in writing only. Written comments submitted in writing by 3 p.m. today have been forwarded to all city council members and will be made part of the record. So at this point, I'd like to take a moment to take roll call of the council members on the call. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson. Councilmember McAuliffe. Mayor Olson.
Here.
Councilmember McNeil.
Here.
Councilmember Dorr.
Here.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
All right, welcome everyone. So in addition, the following city staff are in attendance: City Manager Jennifer Phillips, City Clerk Laura Hathaway, City Attorney Paul Byrne, Human Resources Director Matt Pruitt, Finance Director Chris Bothell, Economic Development Coordinator Jeannie Ash. Are there any other staff members I missed? If so, please identify yourself. Seeing none? All right. So we may have some public that join us. Please mute yourself, and we will do our best to mute you as well on our end. So lastly, before we begin, I'd like to reiterate some meeting guidelines. At the appropriate times, I'll be calling on each member by position number order, asking if they wish to speak or ask questions. I will also be doing this when it's time to vote. If you want to speak, such as to make a motion or second, please indicate by waving in the video, and I'll see you. This will help avoid the problem of two people speaking at the same time. I'll pause at the appropriate times so you can indicate that you want to speak. And remember, keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. All right, so our first item on the agenda is meeting agenda approval. Please note that tonight's agenda is final and only adjustments can be considered are consent items wishing to be pulled or discussion for items that are to be routine and necessary or COVID-19 related that are added with approval of the majority of the council present. If anyone wishes to pull an item, please indicate by waving now. Councilmember Thompson.
I don't actually want to pull an item. I was just wondering if we could get some clarification for the city attorney. I was going to add an agenda item tonight. I just want to make sure that we can do that. If
it's COVID-19 related, then
or
yes.
Routine and necessary.
Yeah, or routine and necessary.
Well, he can make a motion,
Perfect.
which would need its second.
Yep.
And then there would be discussion on that motion to add an item, and then the council members would vote. Because there are 6, it would take a majority of 4 to pass.
I would like to discuss, we would like to put a group together to talk about how we respond to this. For the foreseeable future, things are going to be different, and there will be ways we can adapt in order to help our community. So some kind of a task force involving various parts of the community, people from the chamber, local businesses, boards and commissions, probably a couple of us council members, some staff, we can bring ideas to the table that might be things we can do to positively affect the community. And I'd just like to talk about what that might look like. So I move we discuss that.
Second.
please remember to wave to indicate thank you. All new territory. City Attorney?
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. The motion is to amend the agenda in order to discuss the creation of a COVID-19 task force. Is that correct, Councilmember Thompson?
Correct.
So we had a second, I think, Councilmember Dewar. So then discussion?
Discussion as to whether or not we want to add, the council would like to add that to the agenda.
Yep. So Deputy Mayor Zorns?
I have a clarifying question. Are you thinking about creating a task force or creating some meeting opportunities like we have at the library for a council discussion?
Councilmember Zorns, if I could interrupt, Councilmember Thompson, if I could interrupt, the question, the only appropriate discussion right now is whether or not we want to add that to the agenda. And at that point, you could inquire, Councilmember Thompson could make a more thorough motion as to the action he wanted to take, and we could discuss it at that point. But the question before the council right now is whether or not we want to amend the agenda to discuss that item.
Okay, gotcha. That makes total sense. Okay, thank you.
So I think it's just even a higher level question right now is even, do we want to bring it forward and discuss it?
Correct.
And right now, we're just discussing whether we want to, the pluses or minuses, or really if you want to support it or
The only thing
are
we're
against
discussing, whether or not there's support for the actual idea.
Yeah.
We're only looking at whether or not council wants to amend its agenda for tonight's meeting to even discuss it.
Yep. All right. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, City Clerk?
When I call your name, please indicate yea or nay on the motion to add a item to the agenda to discuss formation of a task force. Deputy Mayor Zorns?
Feels like a pop quiz. Oh, gosh. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I will say yes. Yeah.
Councilmember Thompson?
Mute. You're on mute.
Yes.
Councilmember McAuliffe is not present. Councilmember Mayor Olson?
She just joined.
I'm on.
Oh, she just joined. Okay.
I did.
And so, Councilmember McAuliffe, to bring you up to speed, there was a motion made by Councilmember Thompson to amend the agenda to add a discussion topic of a COVID-19 related task force. So we are asking each council member to vote yes or no as to whether or not they want to discuss that tonight. The details of the task force have not yet been fleshed out. This is simply a motion as to whether or not we want to change the agenda.
So, Councilmember McAuliffe, could you indicate yes or no if you wish to add that to the agenda?
You may all, because you joined the meeting after the initial discussion occurred, you can also abstain if you so choose.
Okay. No, let's do this. All right. Okay. Okay.
Councilmember McAuliffe, your mic is muted. Could you please unmute your mic?
All right.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Could you please indicate whether you wish to add this to the agenda or not, or abstain?
Yeah. I will add it to the agenda.
Thank you. Councilmember McNeil?
Yes.
I'm sorry, was that yes?
That was a yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Dorr
Yes.
and Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right. So we'll add that onto the agenda. Anything else for the meeting agenda? All right. So on to the city manager reports. So we have an update on the city COVID-19 response with city manager Jennifer Phillips.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Just a brief update on some of the activities from the last time we met at City Council. Our Emergency Communication Center remains activated. We're meeting on a weekly basis to discuss the status of our response to COVID-19, as well as review our operations and our supply needs to ensure that we're adequately responding to this crisis. With the governor's extension of his stay-at-home, stay safe order, and his rollout of the his four-phase plan approach to reopening, we're monitoring that very closely. Also looking at when government buildings can be opened so that we can adequately respond for City Hall as well. We were delighted to share with the community this week that we reopened the parking lots to the 3 parks that we had closed the parking lots, but the amenities in those parks still remain closed. A reminder, especially as it gets more beautiful and warmer over the next couple days, to be safe and social distance in those enjoyable places. Work continues for the vast majority of employees. Sometimes there's a sense that when City Hall is closed that there's no work going on. Just want to remind the community, in fact, that there's a lot of work going on. A lot of service delivery, certainly our public safety, our parks, our public works, and a lot of the administrative staff are working effectively from remote locations, and we're still supporting the community and delivering services. I thought it would be really interesting. There's been a lot of work going on in economic development and supporting our businesses in the city of Bothell, and so I thought it would be really helpful for the community and for the council to get an update on what's happening with regards to our economic development program. And so I've asked our economic development manager, Jeannie Ash, to join us. Following her presentation, I'll provide some additional information regarding the CARES Act and obtain some direction from council, general guidelines with regards to those monies, those funds that are expected. So I'd like to introduce Jeannie Ash and have her give an update on what's been happening for economic development and her support and our support in the community of the organization for all of our businesses. Jeannie?
Thank you, City Manager. And it truly is a joy to see all of you. I miss all of you. I miss seeing you at City Hall. I miss being in City Hall and watching you come in and out for your meetings. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So last March, I took some personal time and I took a couple of vacation days. And on March 6th, I left the office, had a few words with Jennifer about the potential of, working remotely, and said, yes, that's great. But when I came back into the office on March 10th, I was astonished at how quickly the environment had changed and how quickly COVID was spreading and how quickly it was impacting our businesses. So it became very clear to me at that point that we needed to circle the wagons around our businesses and provide them the most accurate, updated information as possible. So I reached out to my partners at the Bothell-Kenmore Chamber of Commerce, and I reached out to our tourism manager and asked them to meet with me and talk about delivering services and messages, that we're on the same page and we're delivering the same information and that we could reach a broader audience. And we agreed that Bothell-Kenmore Chamber would reach out to their members, that our city tourism manager, Danae, would reach out to all of the hotel properties and restaurants, and then I would touch base with the businesses out in Canyon Park and North Creek. And I think that you all have seen the evidence of the results of that communication. Bothell Timber Chamber has really been great about providing regular updates to its members and sending out information. We are also, too, providing the same information about resources and jobs and opportunities on our website. And then I hope you all have had the chance to see on our webpage the Support Puget Sound Small Businesses, which is the work that Danae did in collaboration with the City of Seattle in mapping our restaurants that are open for takeout to encourage more business in the city. So I think that there's been some really great work done around the consistency and the messaging about resources and opportunities. I've also been reaching out and calling our businesses, and it's interesting how that has evolved over the last 2 months also. So when I call a business, I always ask, the very first question is, first and foremost, are you healthy? Are your employees healthy? And out of all the conversations that I've had, only one person was being tested for COVID. Everybody appears to be safe, and everybody appears to be practicing safe distancing. Second is, how's your business doing? How are you surviving? Giving them information about resources. During the beginning of this crisis, we were asking everybody to fill out an economic impact survey, and also to asking our manufacturing businesses if they were capable of pivoting and providing resources, PPEs for the state. And we did have one small manufacturer who was able to use his 3D printer to help manufacture masks for healthcare workers. Also, too, like I said, we've been providing a lot of business resources. And one of the conversations I started having early on with our businesses is how to safely reopen. I do realize that there will be standards put in place by the governor's office, and that this city manager and her team will also to have standards. But my goal was to get businesses thinking ahead, thinking about what the future looks like for them to safely reopen and what kind of resources they would need to do so. So those calls are ongoing. I talk almost daily to businesses and also to Community Development Director Cotterman has generously given me 2 of his staff to help me call on small businesses. So we've got active engagement. So one of the things that I've been doing on behalf of the governor's team is doing due diligence on businesses that can provide support to the COVID crisis. One of the results that came out of that is I learned a severe shortage of ventilators that are that's a global thing, and that we have you've all read about Ventec, our local Bothell manufacturer. I spent probably a week, had convened an emergency meeting with federal, state, regional, and local leadership, my economic development colleagues, to help find resources for Ventec. And we were successful in finding manufacturing support, financial support, and workforce. Ventec's CEO, Chris Keppel, was highly successful in telling his story, and we all know that was very successful in that he's now partnering with GM. But I just want to let you know that we worked very hard on finding him resources. Another thing that we've been working on is the Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grants. As you know, Governor Inslee repurposed his strategic reserve funds to assist small businesses. So these funds are traditionally used only for consulting, marketing, and training, and he added operational expenses such as rent, supplies, inventory, and utility bills. And he had $5 million that he was offering up to all businesses statewide. There was such a huge demand, as there is for all financial resources. that unfortunately, as you all have probably heard, there's just simply not enough resources to go around. So I reviewed probably about 100 out of the city of Bothell alone. And one of the things that I learned during that time is, you know, how many of our businesses are falling through the cracks. We have our manufacturers that we're calling on. We have our restaurants and hotels, and then also to the chamber members. But there's still all of these small businesses out there that are falling through the cracks and could use some support. Also, too, another thing I had been hearing in the community is how our North Shore Senior Center had become the de facto food bank for the city. And they were, I called and talked to Brooke Knight and asked her, you know, what her needs were. And she had informed me that their services, the amount of food that they were distributing and the need had gone up 120% in the last few months. And that they were also, too, serving 80 hot meals a day, and they could do more. And this, you know, they're now waiting. They're simply waiting right now to find somebody who could help cook for them and move to a bigger kitchen. So one of the things I did is I've been looking for resources, and there is CDBG money in the CARES Act. CDBG money does not traditionally come to a community of our size. So I asked Mayor Olson to send a letter to our to the county executive at both Snohomish County and King County, asking for resources. When those funds are released, and I believe they're being released on May 9th, so in about 4 days, that they consider the city of Bothell for our needs, which is more funding for the North Shore Senior Center for the food pantry, and also more funding for grants for our small businesses. Also, I feel very strongly that our businesses are going to need some technical support when we start reopening, how to reopen safely. And also, too, some businesses, and this is, I haven't dived into this deep yet, but, you know, some businesses may need assistance in doing floor planning. Or, you know, and that it's something that's usually done in lean manufacturing when someone comes in and helps you lay out your floor plan. So we may be able to provide resources of that kind of technical assistance. So I've asked. So thank you, Mayor Olson, for sending those letters. Hopefully we'll get funding, and hopefully we can use that for the senior center, food pantry, more grant money for our small businesses, as well as technical support for helping our businesses reopen. One of the things, so what's next? So as we're doing all these things to provide resources, we're also meeting and talking about what's next. And one of the things that we're doing is this week, and if you excuse me for just a moment, I apologize, but I can't concentrate when there's a dog barking. Come, stop. Thank you. Get distracted easily. So what's coming up? So on this Thursday, we're having the Innovation Partnership Zone is having an executive roundtable, and that will include our medical device manufacturers. And we're going to be talking about, the executives will be talking about safe reopening, because while all of our manufacturers, and we have a lot of essential businesses out in Canyon Park and North Creek, they're still operating at half capacity. Even the manufacturing are operating at half capacity, as well as all of their admin staff is at home. So they are going to talk about what does that look like, how can they ramp up and be more productive, also to supply chain, and then onshoring. I'm sure all of you have been following the news and understand that the supply chain, a lot of our manufacturers' supply chain is in China and global. How can we bring those resources home and manufacture them here? Also, too, something that I feel very strongly about is that in addition to supporting businesses with financial resources, we need to support them with education about what they can be doing now to help their businesses be sustainable and resilient during COVID and always. So this is a bit of we're going to do this one time and see how we'll be able to do a series. But we're going to the city's going to be hosting webinars, and our first webinar is Tuesday, May 19th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And the topic is leveraging your business's digital presence during COVID-19. And Matt Kale, who is the executive manager of a company called Supercharge Marketing, is volunteering his time to lead this online education. And the purpose of this particular webinar is how can you, as a business, if you have a website and you're using social media, how can you nurture it and make it better during this downtime? And also, too, how can you have ongoing communication with your customers? Another thing we're doing is that we're collaborating with the Northwest Innovation Resource Center and Amazon to produce an Amazon Catalyst competition. This competition is something that Amazon has been doing for some time, and the city is jumping on board. And this is to spark innovation. Think of it as a business, like a business plan competition, except this is an innovative idea competition. Still working out the details in terms of how, the criteria, judging, et cetera. But we will be leveraging our life science cluster, and that will be the focus of the competition. What big ideas do you have to solve a global problem in the life science sector? So that will start in June and will run 60 to 90 days for the competition. I will probably be reaching out to council members and asking them to help me judge local entries. And the grand prize is a $10,000 check. So that will be starting in June. So in addition to everything else, I want to say a few success stories because there are good things happening still. Our ventilator and ultrasound manufacturers are seeing increased orders. The ultrasound manufacturers, ultrasounds are used for COVID patients to identify blood clots. So orders are being increased, as well as our ventilator companies, Philips and Ventec and others, their orders have increased. So just to be clear, Philips is making a ventilator that is used in critical care in hospitals, and Ventec is manufacturing a ventilator that can be used at home, just for your information. Also, too, AGC Biologics is Bothell's biopharmaceutical manufacturer, is partnering with a company called AdaptVac to develop and produce a COVID-19 vaccine. The goal is to start clinical trials in, I think, later this year. Yeah, late 2020. And then finally, there's other stories out there, and I just wasn't able to capture them today, but one of my favorites is Graham's Royal Tea. Graham's Royal Tea, which is on Main Street, is a small business, sole proprietor, and they have actually increased their business and to the point where they're thinking about expanding once they're able to reopen. So Graham's Royal Tea, their business model is that they're an event space, and they host teas for groups, and it's very popular. And they serve, finger sandwiches and tea, and you get to dress up. So she's a very smart business owner. She quickly pivoted her business model, started selling online kits to make hats, fancy hats, and then she started delivering tea kits to people. And they called them, what do they call them? Quarantees, TEA, and started delivering them. And very popular. People were having Zoom tea parties, and it's been such a success that she's going to make it a part of her regular business once we get back to some sort of normal. A couple of things that I just want to touch upon, looking into the future and what does this mean. There are some things that are still the same, even though we're changing so rapidly, that are still the same. One of them is that we still have a shortage of manufacturing employees, and with the growth of the life science sector, there's an opportunity to do more manufacturing, and there's going to be an even bigger need for more employees in the city of Bothell. So the Lake Washington Institute of Technology just launched this. I think they're was in the unfortunate position of launching it this spring, but it was a biomedical device assembly certificate of proficiency. So we'll be working to get people trained. There's still that opportunity. Also, too, with Boeing, not doing as much manufacturing, a lot of the Boeing supply chain, they have no business. There is a strong synergy between between aerospace and life science manufacturing. So hopefully we can do some diversification and attract more businesses to the city of Bothell who can do life science type manufacturing. It's an opportunity, especially once we finish the preferred action plan for Canyon Park, and we can start working to attract new businesses, as well as working with our existing business out there and helping them expand and meet this pent-up need out there. So I will end there. I am happy to answer any questions, and once again, it was great to see you all.
Could I just interject something? Hello.
Councilmember McAuliffe?
Yes, thank you. Mary Hill Winery and Bookwalter Winery, if you buy a case of wine, they're donating to the senior center. So if you would go online and look to see what they're doing. Yes, we're really excited that they're helping our senior center.
Thank you, Councilmember McAuliffe. Is anyone, Councilmember Dewar?
I just wanted to thank Jeannie for a really fabulous update. It's nice to know that there are good things happening. And I just wanted to say personally, I've had ground tea takeout, and it's really fun. So I'm glad that they're experiencing success.
Deputy Mayor Zorns?
No question, just comment. I got like 2 pages of notes from Jeannie, and I have writer's cramp. Lots of good information, so thank you. And very encouraging. I'm just struck by, that old-fashioned word of pluckiness is the plucky spirit that's in Bothell, and you're helping them folks make connections. And I'm very both impressed and appreciative. So thank you, Jeannie.
Councilmember McNeil?
Thank you, Mayor. Also, wanted to tell Jeannie, fabulous presentation. Very excited about the work that we're doing up in Canyon Park, both for first responders as well as hospitals. So very, very exciting news. Phillips, Vantec, all the companies up there. Thank them for their hard work and the things that they're doing. You had mentioned the senior center and the potential of finding a larger kitchen. Has there been any conversation around talking to the school district as they're closed down and maybe using one of the schools like North Shore Middle School's kitchen to help out?
So their facility on the other side of the street apparently has a kitchen, and the only thing they're waiting for right now is finding a cook. And they could certainly use, and I called and spoke to their executive director. I wanted to make sure I wasn't overstepping my boundaries by writing to our county executives and asking for money on their behalf, and she was delighted that they were, that we were doing that on their behalf.
Well, thank you, and great news, and thank you for your work with the Senior Center. Very important part of our community.
Councilmember Agnew.
I actually would just like to join the job that you're doing right now. It sounds outstanding. It's not to know that our little city has helped contribute to the survival of a number of individuals in this country that we live in that's been devastated by this nasty little virus. Nicely done. Great job.
Councilmember Thompson.
I'd like to echo the comments of my fellow council members, and also Jeannie is an extrovert. It's really good to see you too.
Yes, I agree. It's great to see everyone, especially some of the staff. We have quite a few staff in here today, so it's great work that you're doing. I think the contact that you're having with these businesses, small businesses alike, is great. It really lets them know that they're not alone. They have support and they have resources that they can lean on and draw upon. So thank you very much for all your work. City Manager?
So I'm going to finish the last part of my COVID-19 update, and that is with regards to the CARES Act. So the city was notified last week that we're eligible for $1.4 million in CARES Act funding that is specifically for our response or COVID-related expenses for the organization or for the community. The guidelines that are still coming out, it's a lot of information. We need to be very sure that any expenses that we identify for these funds truly are eligible. The city is not in a financial position to make a mistake. We don't have the funds available to cover expenses that potentially don't get covered by the reimbursement of these funds. It is very exciting because some of these funds can be, also contributed to the community to help our community that's in need during this crisis. So again, it's $1.4 million. And as we collect the information, my intention is to come back to the council with a set of options that you would be able to choose from to decide how you would like, from a policy standpoint, how you would like to expend these funds. My goal is to bring that back on May 19th, as long as we have clear direction from the state and the federal government and all the people who are interpreting the CARES Act and how we can use these funds. If we're not 100% certain, the item would come then in early June, but I know certainly that we're eager to be able to share these funds with our community. What I would look for tonight is some general guidance on areas of interest for the council, the majority or consensus from the majority of the council, so that we can start to look at some options that we could bring back when we bring this item back. So it would be helpful for me to narrow down. There's far more need than the 1.4 can cover. And so if we could sort of narrow down some areas of interest for the council. One area of note would be the distribution of these funds would work most effectively and most quickly if we identify, for the community, if we identify nonprofits that are already engaged in a lot of this support work, rather than the city building a program. So that's what we would do is, depending upon your areas of interest, we would seek partners to be able to work with them and then distribute the funds. So any feedback tonight would be helpful. But again, no decision tonight, nothing specific, just some general policy direction, and then coming back either on the 19th of May or the 2nd of June with some more specific information for some decisions by the council. And happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've expressed some interest over the last month and a half about around domestic violence. I learned today that domestic violence is up about 30%, and King County experienced 2 deaths last week alone. So I'm interested in whatever we can do to support finding shelter for people who are being forced to shelter in place with their abusers. I'm really concerned that it's been driven underground, and I wondered which nonprofits could we work with to help support, and B, what can we legally do as a city to be proactive on this issue? It's a great concern to me. And then as far as funding, so it would be domestic violence organizations, and then also obviously the senior center. And then I have another comment that's not related to the funding, but something COVID related that actually maybe something Jeannie could weigh in on or think about. So I'm interested in possibly closing down Main Street for the summer, and for a couple of reasons. One, when restaurants eventually do open, I think the phased approach is 50% capacity. And so I think that would be a great opportunity to allow them additional exterior seating, which would certainly help with economic recovery. I think because we've lost our recreational and events, community-wide events such as 4th of July, I think people will be really craving a way, people in the community, to get together and at least see each other and feel like we're part of a community together. And I think that would be a great, safe way to provide kind of like a living room for Bothell. And so I wondered if we could look into closing down Main Street for the summer and allowing restaurants to maybe use the entire sidewalk, and then the street could be the sidewalk. So I was wondering if we could look into that. And those are my ideas and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Zorns?
Well, one, I know that this isn't supposed to be a council discussion, but I love that idea of closing down Main Street. On the surface, that looks like a great solution for restaurants. My question is, you're saying that this should probably go through nonprofit groups?
I think that it would be
the
delivery would be more efficient if we could do it. It's not a requirement. It's just a suggestion. By the time we stand up some sort of program that has reporting and accountability and how do we figure out how to distribute funds, the most efficient way would be to do it with a partner, but it's not mandatory.
Okay, so a question, an idea, and, you know, it's always easy to throw out the ideas. It's the executing that's enormously more difficult. But I understand there's another municipality here on the east side that uses HopeLink to help people with their utility bills. The funding goes through, I think it's HopeLink. It might be somebody else. So instead of the city we could provide relief for people who are having problems paying for their water, sewer, garbage pickup. Could we have a nonprofit manage those funds so that the city is not losing that funding, but still also providing relief for people? I wanted to ask that question. That's my only comment/question.
So this is the complexity of making sure that what we identify is eligible. So the way that the information is coming back, utilities were considered an eligible expense, but then digging deeper, water and sewer are not. It's only electrical. So this is why we have to be so careful. It's a great example.
That's amazing. So water and sewer are not essential.
That's what we understand today. Now, again, there's volumes of information coming out. So we had seen utilities, and we certainly have a significant increase of unpaid utility for water sewer. So we thought that would potentially be an area. And then additional information that came out is indicating that water and sewer would not be eligible. But again, that's why we have to be sure, and that's why we need the time to have all of this vetted so that we make good decisions.
Is that something that we could write a letter and grovel, ask for that consideration?
We could certainly do that. The question is the timing, and so how eager is the council to make the decisions? It's expenses all the way through December of this year, so there certainly is some time. So absolutely, whether additional changes come through, I can't express how the volume of data, what we're trying to comprehend, it's staggering. And so there's so many answers that I don't have to a lot of the questions, and that's why I'm being so cautious and risk adverse, because again, there's so many needs. We really should try to focus on the ones that we know will be 100% are guaranteed. We've seen it in writing. They're eligible for reimbursement. But again, we'll hopefully find out more and get very specific answers in the weeks ahead.
Okay, well, if we could keep our ear to the ground on utilities of water, sewer, that would be a huge piece for us.
Councilmember Thompson? I believe you're on mute.
I would love to see that money spent on the most basic of needs. People who are food insecure, people who are lacking shelter, as much as possible. The people that have really the biggest needs in the community or the most basic needs. If we could identify ways to meet those with that money, that's the direction I'd like to see it go.
Could you repeat that one more time? It got a little garbled here and there.
I would like to see the most basic needs identified, like food, shelter, water, clothing. Like the people in our community who are lacking the most, I'd like to see the money prioritized toward those needs, if at all possible.
All right, we heard it that time. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councilmember Agnew?
Yeah, I like the idea of trying to go and help out the nonprofits that are supporting the community as much as we can. I think closing Main Street, though, may be a slippery slope. I'd have to know a lot more about it before we make any decision. But I think we're heading in the right direction, trying to get the money to the people that need the money.
Councilmember McNeil?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, there's a lot of need within our community. I wonder, City Manager, do we have internal current city need now that this funding can go towards as well?
Yes, so we have expenses that we've already expended or have costs that we've already expended since the beginning of the crisis. So the expenses are eligible beginning March 1. And so we've expended monies responding to the crisis. Those costs would be eligible. And then we also can identify any additional expenditures between now and the end of the year responding directly to the crisis. So there absolutely would be and could be internal city costs associated with this. That's one of the things I want to be able to bring to you so that you understand the maximum amount of city costs that could be covered by these funds, not in a desire to have all of those costs covered. That's certainly a council decision and your discretion, but so that the council understands what is eligible as we're in a budget crisis, struggling ourselves to stay afloat, how much would be eligible, and then identify these areas that you're telling me now and have the council sort of decide how to divvy up these funds.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a lot of great ideas from the other council members. And so I think, I'd like to hear more of the internal focus as well. And obviously I'd like to ensure that we focus on areas that we know we're going to be able to get the funding for, because I thought I heard you say that there's a possibility that we could extend funding for something and maybe not get it reimbursed. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I definitely would like to ensure that before we extend any money that we know that it would be part of that 1.4. Councilmember Thompson brought up the people's shelter, and Councilmember Dewar brought up the domestic violence thing, all important topics. So I definitely support hearing about that. The nonprofit piece, definitely, if it helps the city to not have to run a program, and we're ensuring the money is going toward the need and not the administration of the what it's for, then that's obviously a good thing as well. Councilmember Doer brought up Main Street, and I'm not sure I quite understand what that was, and but I guess if I'm understanding closing streets similar to like a Seattle street closing, I don't know if I would be in support of that for the mere fact of it would bring, to me, it feels like it would be bringing people to a specific location versus what we're trying to do is separate and keep social distancing. And I think that we want to support our Main Street businesses and get them open in a safe manner. But I don't know if the way I see a closed street is all of a sudden people are migrating to that closed street. That means we have a lot of people in a confined area. And we're starting to see that when we open parks and things like that. So I don't know. I think there's a bigger discussion around that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly, I was going to bring this up in committee reports, but it seems very relevant right now. So we had our North End King County Mayor's meeting, and SEA brought up, Deanna Dawson brought up that United Way was willing to be a partner with cities for rental assistance, and you can craft that kind of rental assistance if you want to target the lowest of the incomes, and you can make sure that it stays with rental assistance within your city as well. So it seems like, there's an established organization that has a track record of using the money for the purpose and not for administration to a high degree, and it could be tailored to be within our working for our citizens. So I just wanted to bring that up. That was something that I learned about today. Yeah, and there was a lot of great topics that were brought up with the domestic violence, the senior center. I think that's very important. It serves so many roles. And yeah, the utilities is an interesting one, and it's just one of those pitfalls that we have to be careful of, because it seems like such a worthwhile cause, but it's also a little bit of a trap that we have to be careful of. So, so I think we're doing our due diligence and looking at really what the bounds are of what we can spend this on. I mean, the main street, closing the street itself, I'm hesitant on that one, but the piece with adding the extra area for restaurants, in some areas that seems like it could be helpful to increase the areas, because inside I think they have to cut down to about half of what they have. So if they could have some exterior space, that sounds like it'd be a great benefit if possible. I know some of our restaurants get outdoor space, so it's something that some use, and so if we can make it available to more, it seems that would be a definite assistance to those that are struggling just to get back open. So City Manager, does that give you kind of some bounds to look at?
It does. It's helpful for the distribution of the COVID, of the CARES 1.4 million. I'm not sure on the Main Street. It sounded to me that was something that the council member Doer was interested when the social distancing, as we get through the phases, and it would be something that would be appropriate at the time based on where we are in the phase. So I don't know if that's something you would want us to bring back at some point. I didn't really hear a consensus, but we could bring an item back that would indicate. We had this discussion about Main Street about a year and a half ago when we looked at the special events, and we didn't get to the point where council gave us direction on whether you wanted Main Street to be sort of this event location or not. Closing it down for like the summer, that needs a real thorough analysis so council understands the pros and cons and the impacts of traffic and the buses and safety and all of those things. So it would, in my mind, it would take an item. So I would look for direction if that's what the majority of the council is interested in, having an item come back for council consideration to be able to make a decision on whether they'd want to close Main Street for the summer months.
It sounded like there was discussion to have that information looked at to know what the pros and cons are. So, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to investigate it and see really what pitfalls, because, yeah, Main Street is, a fairly busy street with transit traffic. So it seems like there are some challenges there, but if we could do some investigation, I think it'd be worthwhile. It just keeps coming up that, if we could look at it, I think we could just be smarter about it and figure it out.
Certainly. We can try to bring something back. I don't know if we'd have something ready for May 19th. That's a pretty fast turnaround. That would be June 2nd would probably be more likely, but we could certainly make an effort. It sort of depends on when the orders, so obviously we'd want to, have it available if the order is lifted and we get into the next phase where the restaurants would be able to open at 50% and use that. So we could bring something back. I had another thought, but I can't remember what it was. So yeah, happy to do that.
All right.
Oh, I know what it was. I'm assuming that it's 102nd to 103rd. No, 101st to 102nd, and not Bothell Way to 101st. Am I correct in that assumption? Okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. So on to council committee reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report out? Deputy Mayor Zorns?
This isn't a committee. I just needed a window to thank everybody who's going to be part. I know all of council wanted to be part of donating blood tomorrow because everyone wants to find a meaningful way to give to the community. So for you council members who are going to be there tomorrow to donate blood, I just want to thank you. You're each individual heroes to me. So, and those of you who would, if you could, also heroes. But if the community is looking for ways to give meaningfully, they don't have the budget, giving time to a neighbor or giving blood, just stopping to help someone, ask how they are, all meaningful ways to find, to be a little more sacrificial than we normally would. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.
So Deputy Mayor Zorns, you called and made an appointment, didn't you? Because it's not walk-ins right now, is it?
It's right. It's not walk-ins. They have all the beds, the donation bays at 6 feet or more apart. Right. I don't think you can walk in. You need to make an appointment. And that's Bloodworks Northwest that you would do that through.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, I touched briefly on it, but we had our North End Mayor's meeting. And we did a kind of around the table or around the video screen of what the different cities are just feeling throughout this COVID-19 event that we're having. And I want to say it's varied. It's wide and varied how different cities are reacting to it. There was a couple small cities that they almost thought that some of their revenues were going to be higher, just the shifts. People are staying local and spending more locally. So it was a bit amazing for me just on how different it was, where we're talking about some serious and hard choices that we're going to have to make in other cities not so much. So, but I think it'll just bring out the best in us and bring us to figure out what matters most to us. So I think we'll just come out on this end more in touch and a stronger community out of it. But it was good to meet with the other mayors and to see them. So I hope we can make it to the next phase here soon and get some of these meetings back in person, because I miss all of my council members, and it's just bizarre just having these council meetings remotely. So, all right, on to visitor comment. City Clerk?
Yes, thank you. We had one visitor comment from Julie Rodwell regarding Lot D, and that was forwarded to all council members as well as the city manager and our economic development manager this afternoon, and it will be made part of the record.
All right, thank you. So on to consent agenda. So nothing was pulled, so if someone would like to make a motion, Councilmember Dewar.
I'd like to pass the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Agnew.
I'd second that.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dewar and a second by Councilmember Agnew. City Clerk with the roll call vote. Oh, is there any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Please indicate yea or nay when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yay.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yay.
Mayor Olson,
Yay.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yay.
Councilmember Dorr,
Yay.
Councilmember Agnew,
Yay.
and please note that Councilmember McAuliffe left the meeting around 6:08.
All right,
6:33, I'm sorry, 6:33.
so it passes.
Passes 6-0.
Passes 6-0. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we have a agenda item added. Just look to Councilmember Thompson to speak to.
Yep.
So Councilmember Thompson, would you like to speak to your agenda item?
Yeah, sorry if I missed something there. Yeah, sorry, I had my computer. Seemed like I was a little bit behind. I would just love to be able to get more voices from the community being able to speak to things system as things continue to change over the coming year. People that are on the ground in the middle of our businesses reopening are going to have good ideas. And I'd like to see some sort of way that those ideas can funnel back to us so we're getting the best ideas we can. And, we could see local businesses, people from the chamber, council members, and people from boards and commissions, and try to get a good cross-section of people in Bothell so that we are getting good ideas for things we could do as the world changes. And I'm not this. Really just what I want is our community to have a way to funnel ideas to us that we could then consider.
So we lost you a little bit in the middle there, but it sounds like, we got the gist of it. Just having community members, business members, council members, some city staff involved in some sort of committee or group to discuss the concepts or ideas
Yes.
for coming out of this moving forward.
Yeah, basically a way that we could funnel ideas that people have from the community to us, because things are going to change probably in ways that we don't even know they're going to change yet. And the people that are closest to that change will probably have some really good ideas. And I'd love to have some sort of way that they could bring those to us.
Deputy Mayor Zorns?
Just a clarifying question on this. Are you thinking that this would be going beyond what we would have during a public hearing where people could stand up and give their 3 minutes? You're talking about being able to make it a conversation where people can bounce ideas off of each other and get a sense of what other people in the community need. Is that what you're thinking that this would add that a open public hearing would not give us?
Yeah, a way that issues could be talked through and spoken to. So if somebody on this committee has an idea that they want to bring forward, there would be people from, the city, people from council, people from other businesses, that ideas can kind of get vetted and come through this committee so that, some of those discussions could be had before they get to us.
Can I ask another question?
Please do.
Okay, so are you talking about assigned slots that people are in, or is this kind of open broadly to the community?
No, so it would be a particular set of, and again, so big picture, what I want is a format for members of the community to be able to speak through these issues. I think it would probably work better if it was a set group of people that had a regular call and chose people from among some of those groups that I listed. But I'm open to other council members' ideas in terms of how the needs get put on the ground for that.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
I interrupt with one more idea, and then I'll yield the floor to other people. I guess my concern is that if we give assigned seating, we're losing the element of time. And Jennifer and staff are trying to shape things up that are coming up in less than a month, right? That we need to be able to speak to. And it just seems to me that if we were to make it less formal as far as assigning pieces versus just getting the word out and seeing who comes and has that conversation through, the first week or so of June, or first half of June, might be more productive. But that's just my gut on it. Other people might have other ideas, and I'd like to hear them.
Any other council members? Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. I like the idea of having some sort of forum for people to bring forth their creative ideas. This is kind of unprecedented times, and I think, this would be a way for people to feel heard and have the opportunity to participate. And I think it'd be actually a great community building possible way forward. And so I'm less, fixed on whether the spots are permanent or if it's just a regular meeting time and people can jump in. I think both could work. But I do think it's a good idea, and I think I've heard that other communities are doing it. So I think it could be really helpful. And if it's not, people will stop showing up. So I don't think there's anything to be lost here. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, the first thing that pops into my head is publicizing some sort of, conference call or web call similar to this, where you have a council member or two and maybe a staff member, and then it's open to public, like Councilmember Dewar said, if people have ideas, they come and participate. If not, it might just wither on the vine and not take off. So it's, but as far as, yeah, forming anything rigid, that seems more challenging and, more time consuming just to create it and set it up, and the thought on who you pick or the selection of it. But it seems if it's more organic, it might have better chance for participation. Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. I would actually concur with you on that. I think the organic piece to me feels more natural. I think it's a fabulous idea, and I think we definitely we always talk about wanting to hear more from our community. Jeannie brought up a great point in all the work that she's doing with the businesses and stuff, and I think that work already might be being done, and then the chamber and the things that they're doing already and collaborating, and maybe it's just an organic way to bring all of those folks together through conversation. And I agree. My concern would be if it's very formal, does it take a tone of this is what our council believes, or is it more of a natural, hey, we're just having a conversation, kind of like Councilmember Dewar does on her conversations. They're just talking through things and bringing the ideas back to the whole council. So organic to me feels good.
Yeah, that was one thing that popped in my head was Councilmember Dewar's council conversations at the library is just participation if they want to be there. And so it's a conduit for the community, with us being able to have some bounds and, some topics to discuss, but it not formal in any sense, I would say. Or the other aspect is does a council member and maybe a staff person plug into one of these existing pieces, or is there another meeting that could have a slant put onto it for this? I don't know, just thinking out loud a little bit, going down a rabbit trail. So I'm not seeing a Councilmember Thompson.
It sort of seems like the general consensus is that if we have something that's less formalized, but more of a drop-in, sort of like council conversations. Is it too cheesy if I say COVID conversations? It sort of seems like that is the general consensus in terms of the best structure for something like this. I'm not sure if that's something that we should move or if that's something that we should take some time, we should think on and maybe come back next week after we've all had a chance to think about things and maybe come up with some other better ideas of what this could look like. I don't think there's any need to be in a rush. I think that things will continue to change. So, that's probably what I would like to do is just come back to this topic after we've all had a chance to digest a little bit and get some feedback.
Sounds like I see a lot of head nods. Seems like there wasn't a strong desire to jump on this right now. I think let it marinate a little bit, percolate around. So yeah, I think we'll just continue to think on this one and see if there's a best way to implement it. So, all right, that brings us to the end of our public agenda. So we have an executive closed session, labor negotiations related to COVID-19. So we will now adjourn to closed session pursuant to RCW 2.30-140, Parent 4, Parent 8, labor negotiations. It's expected to last approximately 1 hour with no action anticipated. The closed session will also be held remotely. Council members will leave the public meeting and join the closed session meeting, which is not open to the public. We will take a 10-minute break to allow council members to log out of the public meeting and into the closed session. No action is expected, and council will adjourn following the closed session, or I'll announce adjournment unless there's any action to be taken. If the closed session exceeds 1 hour, I'll come out to the council chambers and announce the need to extend for however long we need to extend. Should there be action, again, it's not anticipated, council members will rejoin the public web meeting and provide and vote on the said action. So see everyone in 10 minutes.